Here we go into the game. Trollio has chosen the Shaman and Nostam the Druid.
So Trollio's going to have the coin for this first game, and he's playing his Shaman.
We're going to see Trollio's point of view right now and what he's going to replace. Argent Commander, a bit too high of mana cost to leave, but Lightning Storm, an interesting keep against the Druid.
Yeah, Lightning Storm is a great card even against Druid. Perhaps he has picked up on some of the latest trends with a lot of the 2 and 3 drops being more of the focus, and trying to have things stick in play for Defender of Argus has been one common thing to do with Druid.
That's right, and now we see Nostam. He's thinking about replacing all of the cards. Wrath is probably the card that he would most consider whether or not to keep. It is a pretty good card against Feral Spirit. What do you think? Would you keep the Wrath? Would you toss it?
You know, it's hard to mulligan away Wrath. I often keep one just to feel safe, but I also understand that the deck that he's playing is very focused into making sure you have that curve of drops to fill out and make sure that you get, a lead on board instead of trying to fight from behind with something like Wrath.
That's right. Nostam, as we saw his hand, did have the Shade of Naxxramas, which is one of those cards which is gaining popularity. I'd say pioneered by Colento. Would you agree with that?
I believe that Colento helped popularize it, but he would say that the deck was given to him by Strife Crew. So it really is kind of a Cloud9 deck, if you want to think of it that way. And so it sort of came from the mind of Strife Crow, and Colento ran with it and did very well and brought it to the rest of us.
Well, Nostam with a good start. He's starting with that Creeper, and he is going to follow up with probably Shade of Naxxramas, a very strong 2-3 opening.
Yeah, Nax is all over this game so far. The board is dominated by Nax. Double Creeper, and it looks like we're going to see a Shade as well. So 100% Nax cards out of all 3. I don't think that trend is going to stick forever, but definitely a good start for the Druid. If you are going to draw Shade of Naxxramas, the time you want to do it is early.
That's right. Oh, man. Well, this is one of the few times he's going to be able to clear it with just Lightning Storm. Do you think it's too early to use it, or is this a fine time? He's going to be able to kill 2 guys guaranteed with it, and that guy's stealth.
Actually, he'd be tempted to play the Unbound first to help it grow, but if you don't Lightning Storm now, that Shade is going to guaranteed trade with something, and your Lightning Storm is not going to be able to kill it later. I would be really tempted to just pull the trigger on the Lightning Storm. If he doesn't, I understand, and I'll be interested to see how it plays out. The
other choice he's thinking about is the Earthshock Coin Elemental, or even the Earthshock plus Creeper. Earthshock on the Creeper is pretty good. Gets rid of 2 1/1s.
Yeah, so he...
Oh, wow.
Oh, he decides to do both, so he doesn't want to... Okay, I see. He wants to clear the board outright. It does consume the coin. That is an interesting line of play.
It also consumes the Earthshock. One of the things he could have done is just Lightning Storm and then send the 1/2 Creeper into one of the 1/1 Spiders, which I think would have been a better card, since basically you used the coin and used Earthshock to kill 1/1.
Right, and all he's doing is protecting his Creeper for it. So he would have a 1/1 Creeper against his opponent's 1/1, but with Earthshock in hand. So
and
I
the
guess
coin.
He's considering sticking the Creeper in play at full health to be more valuable than the Earthshock. I'm not sure if that's necessarily what I would do, but it definitely is an interesting line of play. It does keep the full value Creeper there, and maybe he just wants to ride that as much as possible.
Right. I mean, I'm a bit notorious for my love of the coin, but it's like, oh man, coin and Earthshock just for a 1/1. Nostam here is going to continue forward with the Golem. He had the choice of keepering the Creeper, chose not to take it though.
Yeah, he could keep her to stay on curve, but I understand, wanting to hold on to that effect. He wants to hold on to it and use it for something a little bit more valuable. Clearly, Nostam doesn't think the Creeper is that amazing. Trollio wanted to hold on to it, and he's going to let him. He gets to stay on curve now, Nostam does. This next turn following up with a Druid of the Claw. So he's back on curve. It looks like he has a pretty strong sequence, pretty strong draw moving forward if Trollio can't get a lot of pressure going.
That's right. Staying on curve is good. It lets you spend all the mana, and he does have a very good 6 and 7. Trollio drew Flame Tongue Totem, which is a really good card considering how many minions he's going to have soon with both of the Haunted Creepers.
Yeah, those Creepers, the Spectral Spiders behind them are possibly going to get really, really angry next to that Flame Tongue Totem.
Right. He's got a number of possible plays here. Flame Tongue Totem is going to allow both of the creepers to trade with the Druid if he chooses to do so. He could try to Hex, since that card is one of the bigger cards in the Druid. He's thinking about the Azure Drake too. A lot of choices here.
I really think he might be concerned about swipe. Playing the Flame Tongue Totem is definitely very tempting. It guarantees that you get good use out of it right away. It would let him hold on to the Hex as well. But he's just going to fight for the board. He's just going to let things keep trading, which is okay too.
Right.
But it saves resources in hand, but it gives up initiative.
That's
so
true.
the Druid player is going to be able to sort of, make the first play here.
Right, he happily plays Cairn right on curve and manages to get a good trade with his 4-6 against the 4-4. But as Trollio expected, these Haunted Creepers, they stick around. So he can expect that these will be around to Flame Tongue Totem if he ever has, when he wants to do it.
I wonder if the time will be now. He's almost certainly going to Hex Cairn. There isn't a better target in most Druid decks than that.
Right.
Sometimes they run something larger like Ragnaros, but...
One of the things to perhaps have considered, though, was using the Hex afterwards, so that if he wanted to clear the Harvest Golem as well.
That's a good point. Now, if he wants to kill that, he has to play the Flame Tongue Totem. He can't just play the Unbound, and maybe he would have considered doing that. The Unbound play would have given up the front end of both Creepers, and would have been very, very soft to swipe, which is something he may have considered. So now he's got an exposed Flame Tongue Totem, but as far as he knows, his opponent has to at least invest 2 mana in hero power to kill it.
It's true. Looking at that entire sequence, it is possible for his Haunted Creeper to have traded with the Golem if he also used Earthshock, which would protect the Flame Tongue Totem, which I think would be a worthwhile consideration. One of those important things to think about before hexing.
Generally, I consider the Druid versus Shaman matchup to be one where it's a bit of a slugfest and you are trading resources the whole game. And certainly we're seeing that in this game already. And one of the things that helps the Shaman trade better with its resources are things like Hex and Lightning Storm.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the Druid stays in the game is by drawing things like Ancient of Lore to continue to have resources to keep pumping out.
That's
and eventually gain an advantage.
Ancient of Lore, my absolute favorite card. Warms my heart as a control player. One of the best value cards around. Trollio has picked up a Hex. No great targets right now. And he's looking a bit of a tricky turn because the Argent Commander doesn't
fit exactly, yeah. Looking at 2 Harvest Golems, Argent Commander no longer is a very exciting play. He may be forced into it anyways, or feel like he's forced into it.
That's right.
That's exactly what's going to end up happening.
It was basically either that or both unbanned elementals, which I think is also a consideration of a play. This does allow him to make pretty good use of the Argent Commander, deal 3 damage with it when it comes into play. That's fine. And he's got an Earthshock to finish off one of those.
It does continue to trade down resources, which is something the Shaman player usually wants to do. His hand is not that amazing, and we do know that Nostam has the Ancient of Lore in his back pocket ready to go. So even if he is able to trade down just about everything, the resources are not stopping from Nostam. He's just going to keep slamming hit after hit.
Yeah, Ancient of Lore, a very key card in this matchup, just to be able to continue on. He draws the Innervate, which is going to allow him to get out a Wrath if he chooses, or even a hero ability is perhaps fine. One of the reasons why Argent Commander, not the most exciting play, is because this Harvest Golem is going to be able to clear it off. And that's a good deal.
Yeah, Innervate definitely a card that helps the deck flow.
Mm-hmm.
He now has a lot of options this turn for what he wants to do. He can save the Innervate if he wants. He doesn't have to
or
use
Wrath
it now.
the Argent Commander, save the Harvest Golem as well. And that's going to be quite annoying since there's no obvious way for the Shaman to release both sides of the Harvest Golem, to kill both sides.
This is not the most efficient play. At this point, he basically has the Ancient of Lore and a lot of small power minions in hand and on board. So he didn't go for an efficient play. He went for the most powerful play into the board. He's trying to continue the advantage he has.
Right, Trollio with a really good draw here. Lightning Bolt when he has both unbanned elementals. Unbanned elemental is actually a card that is starting to fall out a bit of favor in Shaman. I have seen it being replaced with Harvest Golem sometimes. It's still good, as you can see here. That's 6 mana for 6/10.
One of the reasons for Unbound Elemental falling out of favor is not because it's a bad card at all by any stretch of the imagination, but because a lot of decks right now have very good removal or larger minions. We're talking about things like Hunter's Mark, we're talking about things like Freezing Trap. When you have a Harvest Golem, because it has 2 lives, sort of,
Right.
it's more likely to stick in play to use something like Defender of Argus with it.
Good point.
You know, for Shamans trying to play against Hunters, Unbound Elemental becomes less exciting of a choice, but in a matchup like this, Unbound Elemental is as great as it ever was.
We've got just continued on-curve play by the Druid. He's just continuing to put out hit after hit, thanks to that Ancient of Lore. And Trollio here is running out of gas. No card draw from the Shaman whatsoever so far, one of their weaknesses. And he's left with just this Defender of Argus and Hex. Hex, no great targets right now because that Spectral Knight is so annoying. He cannot be targeted, so you have to have the board control in order to kill it. But right now, the board control is slipping away from Trollio.
They're both at such a high life total, and this Defender of Argus does help trade resources on the board, continuing to do so. So when Nostam has to bash his minions into Trollio's, if he doesn't draw on something like another Ancient
Oh man, that Defender of Argus is so big there.
That was a sick draw. And, you know, if Trollio's able to find something like his second Lightning Storm, he might be able to clear a lot of what the Druid has going. And if Nostam were to not draw another Ancient of War, that would be a path to victory.
Right,
as it stands, Nostam definitely does have the initiative here. It does have an advantage.
That's right. Has a stronger board for sure. That 5/7 is going to have to be dealt with only by the minions. And right now, all Trollio has is 5 attack worth of minions with nothing to buff it so far. What he needs is Flame Tongue Totem or perhaps Rock Biter. And even then, he'll still have to deal with all this monstrous stuff. A good placement of Defender of Argus.
Well, he does get a Flame Tongue Totem. It is a powerful card. Hex is sitting there going, please, can I make that guy a frog? Please? Please? But it cannot. Spectral Knight, powerful, powerful ability. Fairy Dragon re-upped. He's just so huge when you get Defender of Argus on that guy, a taunted, untargetable fellow.
That's right. The Taunt Totem, probably one of the totems that was slightly better, but right now this is not looking so great for Trollio. He's just out of cards, and the Druid has a much better board.
Yeah, I really think if we were to look back at one of the decision points that Trollio had, the turn that he played double Unbound Elemental, if he had used his Hex on the 5/5, I think that would have helped him a lot. He wouldn't have had as much of a board presence, but he would have traded more effectively with the cards that he had. As it stands, he's sitting here looking at a Hex that he can't use.
Yeah, or even something like looking way back to the first few turns, he had that coin Earthshock play, and as someone who loves the coin so much, like perhaps on a middle turn he could have played something better. Small plays like that could decide the flow of the game.
And perhaps in this game they did, but that Spectral Knight is crashing in for 5 damage to the face now. It's not going to be long before Trollio doesn't have any good answer to what Nostam is doing. That Hex still just wants to take care of that Spectral Knight. It can't. It looks like Yeti is probably not going to be good enough. Right now he has 5, 9, 10, 11, plus 6. So is he dead? Did we win? Nostam might have the victory ready to go. He's going to count it up. He's going to see if he's got it. That Spectral Spider not even going to crash into the Spectral Knight. Not quite good enough. Yeah, he says, I've got it. The win is here. 15 damage, no problem.
That's right, and congratulations to Nostam for taking a very important game 1. He's almost there. This is, again, for those joining us, a best of 3 single elimination in this top 8. So Trollio is going to have to choose his second deck and be able to beat Trollio, or to beat Nostam's Druid deck, as well as whatever he's got next.